I need sports to have to clear the room. Stand up and walk, now.
Hello and welcome to The Watch. My name is Chris Ryan. I'm an editor at TheRinger.com, and joining me in the studio is Andy Greenwald and our Person of the Year every year, Jason Mantzoukas! Woo! What's up, man?
What's up, jerks?
Friend of the pod, multi-appearances.
Yeah, really the MVP of the podcast this
Wow.
year.
You are, yeah.
You think?
Neither of us were eligible for the
How do you
award
like
this year.
that, Sam Esmail? Kaboom.
Yeah.
Jason is here to do our annual podcast, The Wall. What is The Wall? Glad you asked.
The best way to characterize it is, this is our year-end pod, our year-end culture review. The wall itself is an artificial, completely subjective construct that
Is this the wall?
No.
Is this the wall?
This is all
great question,
Bill
right?
stuff. The idea is basically that it's our Hall of Fame. It's our
Yeah.
annual Hall of Fame. People get inducted. Now, we have had some the bylaws of the wall have not really been committed to hard
Like
copy.
many of the bits we do on this podcast, they are fluid and temporary.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, can people be on the wall more than once?
We're going to find out.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
And so it can be anybody from, you can be pulling apart from a show that is
Yes,
not
absolutely.
on your end of year list, but that part or that person or that whatever was so transformational, they belong on the wall.
That would be a
Absolutely.
great way to look at it.
Great.
And in fact, it's reoriented my entire thinking, and I'm scrapping my list.
Great, as am I.
I think we made this mistake with when we did our year in TV pod, but I just wanted to ask, as we settle down before we start naming names,
Yeah, baby.
how was this year for you,
I'll
Jason?
be honest.
Yeah.
As I was putting together, I do an end of year music list every year.
Yeah.
I do a seasonal mix every season.
Really?
And then
for consumption by others or just personal
for
use?
very few. There's like a couple of people get it. Mostly people that I somehow anecdotally am talking about it, and they're like, well, "Send me that."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like your T-Mobile 5. get it.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. And so I was putting that together in the last week or so, and then started putting this together, and I had like a real revelation.
Yeah.
I have been depressed this year.
Yeah, it's been a really rough year.
This year, like my mix is so melancholy.
Yes.
It is
no.
it is full of wonderful but heartbreaking records.
Yes.
And then as I was putting everything else together, I was like, oh, this year for me was sad music and like comfort food, distraction, entertainment.
Yes.
Right.
Whether it's podcasts or TV, like I didn't go to the movies very much, which is very weird for me. Like I feel like in doing this, in looking at my life in this way, I also this year, for the most of the year, did a Steven Soderbergh style media diet.
Did you really?
I did.
And
I kept track of everything I listened to, saw, went to see. If I went and saw a concert or went to the movie, I wrote everything down.
And looking back over it,
I feel like it is either like indulging in very sad stuff or stuff that is meant to truly just be detachment.
Here's my take. Soderbergh ruined that thing.
Yeah.
Because no one is just knocked out Zodiac again. Well, I am. But
Yeah,
no one
this is a cry for help.
Read Arsenals of Folly and the invention of the nuclear missile race and then knocked out 3 episodes of Black Mirror and then followed that up with a amuse-bouche of Raiders.
Sure.
At the end of the night.
And yet I watched every single episode of Action Bronson's Fuck That's Delicious twice.
Yes.
I think. Can I just also say? I think Soderbergh's media diet is just kind of the world's most indulgent subtweet of people with kids. It is just the strongest parlay from the child-free and proud community.
Honestly, I heard it's not even real. I heard Banksy does it.
Wow, that's
Banksy
incredible.
puts the whole thing together.
He watches all those movies.
It's all
Wow.
It's Mr. Brainwash.
I agree with you, man. I think that it's a tough year for heroes.
Yeah.
It's a tough year for picking people that you were inspired by. I think, it just was one of those things where anything that you got hyped for, there's a very specific thing that happens in our office where something cool happens on the internet and we actually still, it's almost physically viral. We take it into other people's office and you have to see, you gotta see this goal, you gotta see this dunk, you gotta see this kid fall off a skateboard. And
You may, yeah.
it happened, but it didn't happen with the same joie de vivre as usual. You know what I mean? It did not have that unchained, isn't it great to be alive and ingesting content?
There's also an element for me which was I got sucked into much more this year, weird small fringe things that I became obsessed with.
Right.
Versus big giant cultural even though I, of course, was in Game of Thrones as much as
Sure.
we all were, I feel like I got way more like drilled into like weird YouTube channels and stuff like that.
I think partly we often, maybe too often, mourn the death of the monoculture in TV because we miss, and it also obviously was self-serving. It helps our podcast when we feel like everyone's watching the same thing. But there was a monoculture this year, and it was sort of, quietly watching democracy die in flames. And everyone's watching the news, and everyone's riveted by that. And so pop culture, for many people, became a lot more about retreating to your personal warren of safety or comfort.
Absolutely, yeah.
I feel that though, and I definitely have you can always see like on my Spotify playlist list. There's like I just move things up that I want to make sure that I'm kind of going through, and it's a lot of here's weird 70s funk 7-inches.
Did you guys look at your list? Did Spotify send you your year-end list?
Yes. Here's the thing.
And how did you feel about it?
I'm not trying to air her out. She is the most important person I've ever met, but my wife has ruined my Spotify algorithm.
Oh, okay.
So there's just like a lot of Sinead O'Connor
and
in there.
That's because you won't allow her to have her own Spotify profile?
What?
Right.
It's just like
because women
the family
shouldn't have
that listens
them.
together,
Correct.
loves together,
And
I guess.
despite
And
when
you earlier, though, before the camera started rolling, said women shouldn't use computers.
It's true.
Chris Ryan. You said, now that I'm 40, I realize women shouldn't use computers.
We've made some mistakes as a culture, and it's time to begin remedying them now. I have a similar problem with people who are important to me because the message I got from Spotify suggested that my consumption of the Moana soundtrack was out of whack.
Well, it was number one on my Spotify playlist as well, and I'm just a childless single man.
But that's
Does that strike any warning bells?
You're a lyrics guy.
Exactly.
And
I'm all in on Lin-Manuel Miranda.
She's the daughter of the village chief, and her journey was.
And every night I go to sleep with The Rock singing me to bed.
That's well, you really do like Moana.
No, it has nothing to do with the Moana soundtrack.
It's just it's just where you've chosen to lay your head.
So with all that said, all those caveats about
our
never
families
quite having much joy in the world, let's talk about it.
The people who did give us joy.
Yeah. So why don't you go first, Jason? Who's your number one pick?
Okay, I'm gonna really kiss ass here because the first on my list, simply because as I was going through my Soderbergh style media diet, I was like, wow, I spent a tremendous amount of time joyfully listening to, some of them multiple times through, Mallory Rubin and Jason Concepcion talk about Game of Thrones on Binge Mode. Binge Mode is one of my favorite things of all of this year.
That's awesome.
And I listened to, like I said, every episode, and was riveted. I thought they did an unbelievable job, and I'll shout out Zach as well, who helped them out with it, right? There he is. Nice work, Zach. I thought they did an amazing job and did something that, for me, made this season so much more enjoyable to watch, just because I felt so much more prepared and ready for it to kind of disappoint me than ever before, because of how well they had basically schooled me in not only the show's history that I've been following, over the last X whatever number of years, 7 years, but also like book knowledge that I never will care to have.
Yeah.
And it really was, it was one of my favorite things to see pop up every Wednesday or whatever day it came out. And I remember there was a period of time where they were like running late some weeks and blah, blah, and I was like, I'm now having an experience that I don't often have anymore, which is, where's my show?
Yeah.
Hey, man, where's my show?
They were acutely aware of that. Yeah.
Which I think is pretty rad. There isn't a lot of appointment viewing anymore, appointment listening in this case. And I thought they did an amazing job. Like, here we are. It is a show that is recapping a show that has already aired. There is no urgency to it. And they are still I'm still like, the minute it comes out, I need to hear them talk about season 4, episode 7,
But also it's a really great expression of how our relationship with TV has changed, but also our relationship with specifically that show, because Chris and I did our year in TV, and we got perhaps appropriately dinged for not including Game of Thrones
Sam went after you
in our
guys.
top
I like
10.
That.
And the truth is, at this point, if it was a top 10 list of experiences during a time a show is on the air, Game of Thrones is always going to be number one, running away, because it's so fun to be a part of it and talk about it, and yes, criticize it on its own merits. If you just strip it away, I think it was a slightly disappointing season. Post Loot Train,
it was. It had real highlight moments, but it's structurally wasn't satisfying in total. I didn't feel like.
Yes.
And I agreed with, I think maybe you, Andy, from the TV episode, saying a lot of characters who should have had.
Oh, this was Chris.
Oh, it was Chris. Who should have had moments, who we should have dug in on, just didn't.
Yeah, I think it weirdly felt like, I think because of the enormity of the set pieces, and I could speculate that their eye was very much on the ball of like, we got to get these guys all here so that we can do this. I thought maybe those moments that everybody's like, God, I really love it when Tyrion just gets a couple of minutes in a room to shine, felt rushed, clipped, however you want to say it. I would say just about binge mode, obviously there's a little bit of a conflict of interest. Those two people are very, very important to us. But it's awesome to hear you say that, because I think what that podcast did was, podcasts can kind of float in between this weird, like, it's just the new radio and you kind of have stuff on in the background, or you're like, I want to listen to Andy and Chris talk about something, whatever it is, and it's just going to be on for 25 or 45 minutes. Jason and Mallory made something that was just really like transcended the kind of medium in terms of like how much you would go back to it, how much people relied on it, and how much people had invested in their investment in the show, which was just so beautiful to watch.
And just how connected to it they are.
Yeah.
You know, like for them, like it was like their emotional connection to these stories was so important to feel. Because as much as we have spent X number of years watching it, they have spent that many more years reading and talking
and thinking about it,
it, and that was brought to bear in the show, you know, in the podcast.
How much of your appearance here today is just part of this year-long con to get on Binge Mode?
I don't know what you mean.
Exactly.
I mean,
no, it's fair.
I've been on The Watch.
Yeah.
I've been on Talk the Thrones.
It's true. You're circling
have
it.
I been on Binge Mode? Not yet, but I feel like I'm making my way there.
You know the people who know the people.
You're boxing them in.
Hey, listen, I've shared a stage with Mallory and Jason.
It's true. Multiple times.
I know they have a no double Jasons on the show.
It's true.
So I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever get there.
Unless you shiv one of the other Jasons. We're not saying which one.
We'll see.
What's your first person on
Let's
the wall?
keep it in the world of TV, and I have to talk about Kyle MacLachlan. Kyle MacLachlan goes on the wall for me this year. Longtime favorite of mine. Obviously, people know that I love Twin Peaks, and I've always loved Twin Peaks and loved him.
Huge fan of his run on How I Met Your Mother.
Here's the thing: because he played the character that was like the most important character in TV for me. I have always been rooting for him, and I think we always have people that we root for in culture because we like them, or maybe we met them once, or maybe their original TV series ended in a terrible cliffhanger in which they are inhabited by an evil doppelganger that represents all evil.
Sure.
Just throwing it out there.
But you always knew there was going to be this season. It just was 18 years away or whatever.
Never. 25 years.
25,
and I never thought, honestly. I'd made peace with it. And so when he was in Showgirls, and I was like, well,
the best.
It's iconic, but I sort of felt bad for him because he's really a talented actor. And he came on the podcast a few years ago. Couldn't be nicer.
Yeah.
What a great guy.
Super good dude.
They can't make the show. People said you can't make it without David Lynch. True. You could not have made this without Kyle MacLachlan. And one of the most exciting parts of it was that they didn't just come back for him to play that part. He played 3 parts and played them spectacularly well. He played a pure villain in The Doppelganger. He played the original character in various states of distress and otherness. And he played this character, Dougie Jones, not the Senate candidate in Alabama, but a just schlumpy guy in Vegas. And it is one of the greatest, purest, comedic, almost clowning performances in TV. And he all of those performances were amazing, and he made my life better.
My first person on the wall is Vince Staples. So
great.
Not only is Vince one of my like 2 or 3 favorite rappers who are working right now, not only did I love Big Fish Theory, which is a record he put out this year, which continues to do really interesting, really unique stuff with rap without being like I'm doing interesting and unique stuff with rap all the time, which is I think
his problem with me.
Well,
because I'm constantly
most
bragging
of my adult
about
life. I have been listening to rap that kind of exists either in one of two, whether it's in a mainstream space or an underground space, and that stuff kind of like collapsed in later on, like in the 2000s. But for the most part, you know, Vince is working off things that are heavily influenced by UK grime and UK pirate radio sounds. He's like working with James Blake. He's doing all this different stuff and is still like this just ferocious lyricist. And is also one of the only people in the world who should be allowed to have Twitter.
I agree.
And
I was hoping
that
you'd get
seems like
there.
faint praise, but I often am like, I don't really understand how to be in this world anymore. Like, I don't really know, like, how do I want to like project myself to people? I guess that's sort of stupid since I am on microphone most of the time. But I look at somebody like Vince who is able to routinely tweet things like Eminem has Assassin's Creed flow. And I'm just like, I don't know how you do it, man. I don't know how you have the bars and then you also have the Twitter bars.
He's funny. Some people were made for these times.
I'm just
is what you're
thankful
saying.
for him. So thank you to Vince Staples for being you. Vince Staples is my first person on the wall. Jason, who's number 2 for you?
I'm going to go, a Brooklyn band called Big Thief put out a record this year called Capacity.
Okay.
I love this. I don't know. This is a tip.
Oh, really?
I don't know this
Wow.
band.
Oh, great. Oh, ooh, that makes me feel even better.
Preach.
I love this band. They are great. I saw them in like some weird old converted church in Highland Park this year.
Yeah.
They put out this beautiful record that's just, and it's full of like heartbreaking songs.
Oh, is this a sad thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, like all of my music is like devastatingly sad songs.
Yeah. Does it ever happen that you have something like that on your headphones and you're in a more contemplative place?
Sure.
And then perhaps someone approaches you and wants you to be on in a different way?
Oh, well, I had this happen the other night. The worst juxtaposition of this.
Great.
I do a podcast called How Did This Get Made? And we did it live at the Ace Hotel here downtown LA.
You do live podcasts without us?
We do. I'm so sorry. Guys,
great.
I am so sorry. And I'm driving to that show, and it's like a beautiful LA night.
Yeah.
And I put on another one of my favorite records of the year, Phoebe Bridgers' record. And there's a song on that called Smoke Signals that I think is devastating. And I put that song on repeat only and cried for the entire drive from my house to a comedy show.
What was the movie you guys were doing?
The movie was Valerian.
Oh my God.
Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets. It was not good. I have an update. It is 2 hours and 20 minutes it's as if there's a person off camera with a remote. It's like Click. With a remote control who's just like, oh no, I want this movie to instead be this every 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And the whole movie changes. It is nuts. It is so weird. I cried the entire way there listening to Phoebe Bridgers, who is an LA singer-songwriter, guitarist, amazing, another amazing record, and wept openly. I was like, what is happening to me? Something is wrong.
Wow.
Yeah, and then had to be funny.
How was the show?
Not good.
Terrible.
No, it was great. But I was like, I really had to be like, okay, because it was like Sunday, and I had like a lonely Sunday at home, and then like went and was like, okay, I got to connect with people. I got to I remember.
That's really hard.
And it was super. It was wild.
I'm going to pick another musician. I'm going to pick someone who was also on our podcast this year. I felt like we had to have a slot for someone on the podcast, and it would just be weird to pick Jason since he's sitting here judging us for it. Katie Crutchfield from Waxahachie.
Oh, yeah. I love that record.
The Waxahachie album, Out of the Storm, one of the best records of the year.
Yep.
And also, for me, like this was a year of musical mismatches for me. We think we're going to do a podcast at some point before the end of the year specifically about records and songs that we loved. But I'm struggling trying to figure out whether this was an exceptionally weak or mediocre year for music in general, or if it was just a year in which what I wanted from music wasn't there because what I was looking for was impossible, and maybe I wasn't willing to go full darkness.
And that's very true. Like my list musically is like so monotone in its like maudlin tone.
And I kept looking for something to like meet my mood, and I wasn't finding it. And then it was also another tough year for the rockers and the guitars in general.
Yeah, right.
This Waxahachie record, to your point, Jason, like it's redolent with 90s guitar sounds and things that just mainline right to our brains. But it also felt completely alive, particularly so in this year. This is an album that came out earlier in the year, and half the songs are just about being undermined and taken advantage of in ways not just physical, but emotional or mental, by creepy dudes at the indie rock concerts. Or not even creepy dudes at the indie rock concerts. Frankly, we said this to her when we had her on the pod. Dudes who are maybe just sitting there like, doing the drumming on their sternum and just feeling it and feeling like we're feeling it, but the wives and girlfriends and friends, they're not feeling it in the same way. And it was such a rejoinder to records that meant a lot to us, and I think meant a lot to Katie too, and expanded the conversation and expanded the debate. But also the record just goes, and I think she deserves a spot for that alone.
So for my second pick, I'm going to cheat a little bit by putting two people in there.
Okay, this is one of those times, and Jason should be aware of it. there are no rules.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
This is a completely artificial construct.
my number 2 slot, which goes to 2 people, and those 2 people are Merritt Wever and Scoot McNairy.
Okay. Godless.
Yeah.
Not only for Godless,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So Merritt Wever, it is for Godless. Merritt Wever has had a like Ted Dansonian career on TV.
Dansonian
Yeah.
is great.
Well,
Great
she's
word.
just been in everything that's good. You know, I mean, she's been on New Girl. She's been on Walking Dead. She was on Nurse Jackie for a long time. Won an Emmy for that, I believe. But, is one of those people you're just like, damn, I'm really just happy to see Merritt Wever in this show.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know ever if she got a shot to play something like the character Mary Agnes that she plays in Godless, which is essentially she's a gunslinger. She plays a quick draw, tough talking Western gunslinger. And also in this show is Scoot McNairy.
Before we do Scoot McNairy, Jason, do you want to weigh in on working with the most Dansonian person of all, Ted Danson?
Oh, yeah.
Is it like working with Merritt Wever in a lot of ways?
It's pretty wild. It was great. I worked with Ted Danson just this year on The Good Place, and it was I'd never met him. I showed up for the first table read because, again, I've never met him. I showed up for the first table read, but I do know almost everybody else on that show either comes out of the same UCB comedy scene I do, or I've worked with them on something else or whatever. So I knew most of the other people, and so I was in that instance just meeting Ted, and I was like, "Hi, Ted, nice to meet you." And it's all like hubbub before a table read. I was like, "Oh, it's nice to meet you, Ted. How are you?" And he goes, "Well, I've heard you're explosively funny." And I was like, "We'll see." And then we did the table
You're like, I've
read.
been listening to Big Thief all day, so probably not.
I don't know. I am openly weeping in my car all the time. And then after the table read, he goes, "Okay, I see it. And it was very funny.
That's
he was
great.
awesome.
Because I wondered, because you and Darcy, who you had all your scenes with, you come out of the UCB scene together. You're doing your thing.
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys are playing
Yes,
on that
very
show,
much
which was
so.
wonderful on the
Yeah.
show. And he comes from a different background and training. And
All those guys do. And he was very he was excited. There's something about being given the opportunity to improvise, within the safety of people who are comfortable doing it. Not just well, let's open it up. And then everybody's like, wait, what? But for him to just be part of those scenes with Darcy and I and be able to just play around, it was fun. It was you got a sense of oh, this is exciting. But that show, I think I said this before we started, there are a number of things that I would have highlighted on my list or would put on my wall that I am reluctant to simply because I am on those shows. I made The Good Place season 1 was one of my favorite shows of last year, and I was I had such an emotional reaction to Mike Schur, the creator, asking me to be on it. I was blown away. And so the to get to do it with all those people, so exciting.
So let's talk a little bit about Scoot's 2017.
Yeah, I was going to jump in on that too.
Scoot is
I do not watch *Halt and Catch Fire*.
high usage. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He's in a lot of other stuff. How about starts this year in a little scene film called Sleepless
Okay.
with Jamie Foxx and
Oh,
T.I.
yeah. Sure.
as detectives who are also robbing drug dealers.
Yeah.
And
This is Jamie Foxx's Taken, right?
yes, and Scoot, and then they took in his kid.
Yeah.
They took in Jamie Foxx's kid.
Oh, you don't do that.
And
The little fox?
Scoot
No.
plays a sober coke dealer in Vegas.
Okay, that's probably
who
a
is
smart
trying
choice.
to make ends meet in some he's over leveraged.
Can I just pause
so
here?
I gotta get through the synopsis here.
What coke dealer is having trouble making money in Vegas?
Yeah.
Well, what coke dealer is sober in Vegas?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
These are great questions.
He
This is
is
the podcast
trying
forum.
to make ends meet by making a buy from Dermot Mulrooney, who plays a casino manager. That movie is wild. He was also in War Machine.
Yeah.
He was in *Halt and Catch Fire*, and he was also in Batman vs Superman was the end of last year. But I think that he's just had this incredible year.
I do-
he was in Fargo. He was incredible in Fargo.
He had a great one episode run in Fargo. I should say, people were also asking why we didn't talk more about *Halt and Catch Fire*. I think it's because 2/3 of this table didn't watch it.
I didn't. I
It would-
auditioned for the Scoot McNairy part in *Halt and Catch Fire*.
Did you really?
you
Are you
really?
serious?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was great. I read it and was like, this is awesome. It was such a great pilot
Oh my
script.
God, what a what if.
And I was like, I chased that hard.
Yeah.
Wow.
But he was already straight up a movie star.
What other Scoot McNairy roles do you think you would have been a better fit for?
The first time I saw Scoot McNairy and genuinely was like, I don't know who this dude is, but he's fucking awesome. And I'm going to space the name of the movie. It's him, Brad Pitt, and Ben Mendelsohn. It's the first time I saw Scoot McNairy and Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah, it was that.
It wasn't a great
Killing
movie.
Him Softly.
It was the
Where
Andrew
he
Dominik
does
movie.
heroin to the Velvet
Yeah.
Underground's heroin.
which It's like wearing a band's t-shirt to the concert, right?
In the needle, yeah.
I didn't love that movie, but I remember being like, oh, it's the cool, like, atmospheric crime movie, and being like, oh, Brad Pitt's doing a good job, but having no idea who those other two dudes were, being like blown away by Scoot McNairy, and then Ben Mendelsohn was like, I was like, I think I'm watching something like a magic trick happen. I think that dude is like next level.
Yes.
But Scoot McNairy
in Godless.
He is incredible on *Halt and Catch Fire*. It is a slow burn of a performance. He gets his ISO plays on this season as well. The show didn't make my list. I should tell people. I just felt like the season lacked a certain. The stakes
was this
were weird.
The finale?
It was the finale.
Yep.
It was beautiful. The performances were great. It lacked the urgency to me that I needed to put
I want
in the
you
top
to
10.
now attend all major Hall of Fame inductions.
And just sort of ding.
As Tim Raines is about to go into the Baseball Hall of Fame, you're just like, I just want to let you know I did not watch the Montreal Expos, but I am okay with this.
Can I ask you very quickly, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Chris. Now
Tim
that
Raines,
it is done, should I watch it in its entirety? Is it a satisfying watch?
Yes.
Great.
Although
that's all I need to know.
My whole thing about that show was people were so stressed. There's too much TV to watch. And I would tell people they didn't have to watch the first season because the show takes such a quantum leap. Not the show quantum leap.
That's how I feel about Leftovers as well.
I agree. We're on the same page about
I have
this.
to return to that because I abandoned it in season 1.
Right.
I almost did as well.
Yep.
Season 2 and 3 are incredible.
Yes, I know.
And *Halt and Catch Fire* becomes a different show in 2, 3, and 4. And if you are a completist and now you know you can budget your time accordingly, you know how many hours there are, watch it all.
Totally.
Absolutely.
But,
all right, we're going to get to the last two people for each of us on our wall. Let's just take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. Today's episode of The Watch is brought to you by Zelle. Zelle is the new way to send money to your friends and family from your banking app. Cash is easy to lose, and checks take a while to clear. But with Zelle, once you're enrolled, the money moves right between bank accounts and typically arrives in minutes. You pay your share for dad's gift, you request half the cost of the Christmas tree you bought with your roommate, or you pay that personal trainer you hired after Thanksgiving when you had too much stuffing, all thanks to Zelle. It's easy to use and works with almost anyone with a bank account in the United States. And don't worry, Zelle is safe and backed by major banks, which means you can send money confidently. Just go to ZellePay.com to learn more. That's ZellePay.com. Zelle, this is how money moves. All right, we're back. We're going to get back into the 2017 Wall, our annual year in culture review where we induct people into an imaginary Hall of Fame. Their picture goes on the wall. It can never be torn asunder. Jason, who's your number 3?
My number 3 is Amy Sedaris.
Nice.
Who has had quietly like a pretty fantastic year. She is on, and this is another part where I have to say that I'm going to promote something that I am also in.
That's fine.
She's terrific on a show on CBS All Access called No Activity. That's an Australian format that they redid for American television, and she's in it and is fantastic. She is fantastic on her show, the show that she has on True TV, that is like almost like a hosting kind of weird show that's totally perfectly Amy Sedaris. And then she turned into me one of the best performances on TV this year, most heartbreaking performances on TV this year on BoJack Horseman, this season of BoJack, where her character is like, the whole season of BoJack this year is about kids and parents and aging and all of this stuff. And her character is going through this incredibly devastating process of trying to get pregnant and continuing to have miscarriages and unable to get a pregnancy to hold. And that the kind of character's journey throughout and what this does to her is just devastating in the midst of what is honestly like one of the funniest shows on television.
Yeah.
You know, they quietly are doing almost every season are ratcheting up not only what a solid creative joke machine this show is, but what an absolutely devastating piece of like of just heartbreaking melancholy. They, you know, from her storyline this year to just like really digging in on the Wendy Malick character's dementia.
Yeah.
To the point where there's a whole episode that is just from the point of view of someone with dementia, wherein her character is staying the same, but everything around her is changing. So like she is in having a conversation in one moment with who she thinks is her husband, in another moment with someone that is clearly her son in the present tense, and then it will be like a white just void. Yeah. And that was just like chilling and upsetting, and it was great.
This is a tough thing to say for this podcast, but big year for cartoons.
Yeah.
Chris has a hard and fast rule. We don't talk about cartoons on this show. But, But Big Mouth, a show that you're on, great, really funny, boundary pushing show in a lot of ways, but also quite moving, I think, and
really
respectful,
heartfelt and sweet. Yeah,
and people love that Rick and Morty, man.
Dude, it's on my list.
People love that too.
Yeah, it's on my list. That is like, and I think that's kind of speaks to, for me, the desire for escape. You know, is like I want to watch Rick and Morty. I want to watch like really well thought out, deep like level sci-fi that is also just crazy hilarious.
Yeah.
And relatively short compared to some of these other things.
Totally.
It feels doable at the end of a
like
punishing
I watched
day.
all of Rick and Morty. I watched all of BoJack. I watched all of Bob's Burgers this year. Like I did not watch Mindhunter.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I will. I'm certain I'm going to love it. But it didn't seem as, I was like, I want to watch these other things.
Sure. And you can come back on the show when you have.
I will.
Because.
Absolutely. Because it's
frankly,
to be talked about.
This is the place.
Who's number 3 for you?
Greta Gerwig.
Oh, nice.
Lady Bird, Chris and I have talked about repeatedly. We had Laurie Metcalf on the podcast to talk about it. There are many movies, particularly movies that are hyped or beloved, and you go into expecting something that fade a little bit in your mind and your memory afterwards. You enjoyed it while you were there, but maybe it doesn't hold up, or maybe you start poking holes in it. I think that Lady Bird is a little kind of it's a magic trick because I remain enchanted by it after having seen it. And in fact, the parts that are sticking with me are the parts that I wouldn't expect to, the parts that are harder and tougher than people who have heard about the movie and maybe are expecting just a generally maybe a pleasant nostalgia trip or a movie about high school. This is a strong movie. It's a tough movie about people and about people becoming people. And I just think it's incredible that she directed this film. It's her first movie.
I'm going to go for number 3 with an oldie but a goodie.
Oh, yeah.
86 years young, John le Carré.
Oh, interesting.
So,
sure.
Released his umpteenth novel. I don't even know. It's Legacy of Spies. He has had to sort of grapple with, in the course of his life, he's seen the Cold War, seen the fall of the Berlin Wall. He has seen sort of the rise of the international terror state, or whatever you want to call it, and grappled with that. And now he's sort of looking at not only the era we live in now in terms of disinformation, in terms of the sort of reheating of the Cold War, but also the gut check that's gone on among intelligence services, governments, and people of his generation about what happened and how they went about doing the way they did things in the past. And aside from that, he's my favorite writer. He just writes sentences and writes characters and writes conversations, and you'll be reading and you'll just realize this is a scene in which two people, one person sitting across from another, the one person is reading something that he wrote 30 years ago and is remembering what it was like to write that, yet it's also the document that he is reading and a outside narration of the actual events that are being played out that weren't in the document, but that he chose to redact from it. And I think that obviously there's a degree of genre excitement that goes along with the Spies, with everything that happens, the Cloak and Dagger stuff. But in a weird way, nothing has prepared me more for the terrible state of the world than this guy. And I guess for that, I have to thank him. And it was a Legacy of Spies I had very low expectations for. You just don't really expect a fastball from an 86-year-old. And it was remarkable. Yeah.
Can I say, I just want to support your point. Probably my favorite appearance on Fresh Air this year.
Oh, really?
That's very on brand
to it,
for me to say, but
yeah.
Terry Gross always on my wall.
Yeah, who's your favorite Fresh Air hit of the year? Let's take a peek under the NPR hood for a minute.
We're all Fresh Air heads here, right?
Sure.
Jason, who's number 4? Last one.
One of the people that I consumed a lot of material from this year that I love is Action Bronson.
Yeah.
I think his show Fuck That's Delicious is just, I like that he has inserted himself into our world as an agent of chaos.
Yeah.
In a pretty terrific way. In a chaotic world, I like that he's entering he came, listen, as a hip hop artist, I think he's interesting and compelling.
Yeah.
Does he sound like Ghostface? Yes, he does. But I still enjoy his albums. I'm still on board for him as an artist. But I find his stuff on Fuck That's Delicious, and I don't know if you guys have watched at all
every episode
his
multiple times.
late night talk show.
Yeah.
That is one of the most interesting bits of insanity I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And the fact that it is on television makes me thrilled. That they are just pointing cameras at a big open room and people are getting high and cooking food and dancing and playing music, and it is
sweating profusely.
Chaos.
Yeah.
It is indulgent chaos, and I love it.
If someone's looking for a Fuck That's Delicious to start with, I can't recommend more highly the New York episode.
Oh my God. The one where they're eating Peter Luger's out in the parking
Hasidic
lot?
Jewish guy at
Yes.
the batting cages.
Yep.
It is.
Don't you think there's also something beautiful about this? Doesn't happen so often, but when someone enters the culture with one thing,
Yeah.
and then the culture says, "We like you,
Yeah.
this is good," but what we really like is something that you love even more.
Totally.
And how great to be like, I'm rapping, and rapping that's a tough field to make it in.
Yeah.
But he's like, I also really like to eat.
I also, because
And they're
that's
like,
the thing
hooray
is,
for you.
It
Let's
is
do
the
that.
intersection of things that I love in a great way, because it's as if a stoned, hilarious maniac
Yeah.
has just been dropped into an episode of Chef's Table.
Yes.
And another
Which is
show,
what Chef's Table needs, by
Yes,
the way. It
which
is a
another
little
show
too
I
austere.
really like.
Yeah.
But you know what I really want? I want to see Massimo have to deal with a stoned out of his brain Action
Yes.
Bronson, not just Massimo being like, I get to be Massimo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's no, now wrangle this.
Right.
Also, as we reach certain ages in our life, and Chris reached it recently, so I think we should highlight that. But what we're looking for out of our life changes
Yes.
slightly, and our priorities shift. And Jason, we talked about this maybe even on mic, that when I ran into you and Nick, and you were going up to San Francisco
yeah.
to do a festival, I'm sure you had a great time at the festival.
Great
I'm
time.
sure the crowd loved it. You liked doing comedy with your pals.
Loved it.
But the headline for you at this point was, I got to go to San Francisco and go to good restaurants.
Oh yeah, State Bird Provisions, baby.
So what if you could just tweak the ratio,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you were going to San Francisco to do that?
Yeah.
You take that deal, right?
Absolutely.
Right, this is-
Absolutely.
This is what I'm saying.
100 times.
I just was in New York and went to the Grill. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Great restaurant.
But you didn't go just to go to the grill, right?
No,
You
no.
had to
I went to do
do
shows.
You had to go laugh, make people laugh. Right.
Exactly. And I just love Bronson's presence. I love what he's doing. I love him when he shows up on other stuff. I like that he is just kind of collapsing the walls into other people's things.
He's one of the few tolerable 360 personalities.
And then you'll see something I was clicking through on Viceland once and saw he has a show where he and his friends just watch the TV show Ancient Aliens stoned on a couch. It's just them watching a TV show,
Viceland.
and it's nuts and hilarious. And then he just started this show. They're already 30 episodes into it. They just started a couple months ago. That is a late night talk show on
Yeah.
Viceland that is double chaos. It is untethered madness,
Yeah.
and it is delightful.
Of all the ponies to put everything in on, Viceland chose the right one.
Oh, it's
He's
great.
their guy.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed that.
Who's number 4 for you?
I think I have to put Gail Gadot on my list, mostly because I wanted to
Gal
use
Gadot?
Gadot.
Do you mean Gal Gadot? Because you said Gail Gadot.
Gal.
I'm 100% sure. You said Gail Gadot.
Let's say it with me again.
It's Gal
Yes, but
Gadot.
let me talk you through my
And
pronunciation.
listen, keep in mind,
Yeah.
I am not Jewish, and you are.
It's a strong counter.
But sure, tell me about this Gail Gadot.
She's my travel agent.
I like that I can hear Zach laughing
She's
from the other
terrific.
room.
Here's the problem with saying that name out loud on a microphone. First of all, you're welcome for taking a risk.
Sure.
This has been a very safe podcast so far. I read recently that in the correct Israeli pronunciation, it's really all about the hint of the T at the end.
Uh-huh.
And I was so focused
Yeah.
on getting there, I didn't care about what route I took.
Yeah.
And I took the wrong one.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to say her name again. But
Sure.
what I am going to say is that every few years, celebrity culture produces someone who is fresh and beautiful and deserving of it, and nothing about it seems terrible. And that's very rare. And Wonder Woman was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
And her performance
Great.
is fantastic. And it was a big hit. And I feel like we needed that this year.
Yep.
And then we got that GQ profile of her where she wrestled Katie Weaver on the sand using her Mossad training.
Oh, I didn't know. I
And
didn't see this.
fed her hummus. And it
funny.
just generally seems like
Yeah.
a terrific person. Also seems to have gotten Brett Ratner effectively fired from movies.
Yeah, right?
So win.
Totally.
And I think she deserves a place, whatever her name
Here's
may
what
be.
I'll say. Here's what I'll say about Gal Gadot, or Gail Gadot,
Why
as
are you
you
so
call
good
it.
at saying
Good
it?
old Gail. Here's for you, and for many people, she will be Wonder Woman. She will be Diana. For me, she will always be Giselle from the Fast and Furious movies.
Yeah, you had her first.
I watched her die, and I wept in Fast 6. Holy cow. Wow. So for me, as much as I loved Wonder Woman, which genuinely loved Wonder Woman, I thought it was one of my favorite movies of the year. And I thought she was perfect and effortless in both the action and the comedy. And
the comedy.
She and Pine were great together. Yeah. She is still, to me, Giselle. Will always be Giselle. R.I.P. Giselle, baby.
At this point, are you surprised when you see people be funny we didn't expect? Who knew Chris Pine was funny? Chris Pine is funny.
Yes. I was not surprised Chris Pine was funny.
But Giselle, I forget the name of the actress who plays her.
Gail Gadot, I believe is her name. I've heard it pronounced recently.
That sounds right to me. Let's go with that.
Good old Gail.
But are you surprised when people who maybe don't come from a UCB world, they're not used to being comedic performers? Like, what is it about them that allows them to be?
Well, people are funny. You know what I mean? Like, people can be funny. They're funny. That's the thing is, like, you don't have to be trained to be funny. There are funny people everywhere.
Right.
It takes a certain type of funny person to be like, I should be paid for this.
Right.
And those are maniacs.
Yeah.
Like, those are crazy people. Most people are like, yeah, I'm funny, but like, I'm going to like do something with my life.
Right.
But other people are like, I'm funny, and that's it.
And those are the kind of people you find weeping in their car on a Sunday evening.
Yes, on their way to a comedy show. On their way to do a comedy show, listening to one song.
It takes a certain type.
So number 4, I was going to put in. I was gonna say Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah, but
she's already on the wall.
our inaugural wall
Yeah.
from the
Yes.
Grantland days. She's the
I've heard it.
queen.
Yeah.
So I want to fire up an old chestnut from earlier in the year on the watch. Zach, I need the violins. It's time to go back to Taboo
Island? Oh,
Wow,
no.
this is an audible
Tom
in the moment.
Hardy is going on the wall.
Wow.
And here's
Wait,
why.
Tom or Chips?
No, Tom. It's
Not
definitely
Chips?
It's a package deal.
It's a package deal. I'm sure you will get Chips an executive producer credit on this picture on the wall.
This nomination is co-created by Chips Hardy.
Obviously, we got a lot of different looks from Tom Hardy this year, right? We got
We always do.
Taboo, which I think even me, who may be the most charitable viewer of Taboo, thought muted some of his natural charm.
Oh, okay. Got it.
But
Yeah.
in Dunkirk, he
good
basically
call.
wears
Yeah.
a mask the entire time.
He's done it before in a movie.
He is not even, I would say, has like 3 or 4 lines of dialogue outside of banking left.
Yeah.
He's on your back. I'll come around. But is responsible for the most moving and beautiful and like inspiring moment in film that I saw this year, which is his silent dying plane coasting down the coastline and landing, and then him lighting the plane on fire and just standing there and watching it, which for some reason to me is the most resonant image of the year. Also, and this is not a spoiler, is rumored to play a stormtrooper in Last Jedi.
Oh, really?
Which is
like
just like Yahtzee.
Daniel Craig
Yeah.
in the last one?
Yeah. So
Funny.
I have a soft spot for Tom Hardy. I know that obviously Taboo is divisive, but
I also think it's just we should always be commending Tom Hardy because there are few actors. I mean, maybe James Franco's one of them, but he just makes really weird choices.
Yeah.
He is currently filming Venom.
Oh, yeah.
a
I'm
film
aware.
based on a really probably over-the-top Spider-Man villain from the Todd McFarlane era of the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Most notable for its giant slithering alien space tongue.
Yep.
And he's just like, this is the
And
right role
rows
for me.
and rows of sharp
they don't
teeth.
even
So many
have
teeth.
Spider-Man anymore, right?
And
Like-
once again, and they've given Spider-Man basically over to Marvel, so Spider-Man's not in this film.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a character, once again, who is primarily hidden. For the
And
entire...
who looks like Spider-Man.
Right. Yeah.
Venom is like Venom, like if you can picture Spider-Man in the black suit,
Yeah.
the black suit itself is Venom.
Came alive.
That is the symbiote, and that's what's crazy.
we live in a tarnished era for many things, but it is a golden age of like the Hollywood Reporter deep dive on something.
Sure.
It's like, how did this happen? I wish we're not there yet, but I wish the Hollywood Reporter could be like, inside Tom Hardy's decision making.
Well, you know,
like his power
that's
structure,
actually not-
what his agents told him, and then in the moment he told them, my dad and I are going to do this instead.
That's not an insignificant amount of why I said this, because the other person who I was thinking about was Robert Pattinson, who was in two of my favorite movies this year, Lost City of Z and Good Time.
Sure.
And he is unrecognizable in both.
Yeah.
And he is not particularly likable in Good Time. I mean, you wind up pulling for him, but it is a complicated role. And in Lost City of Z, he plays this bookish sidekick to Charlie Hunnam. But watching these guys and these actors sort of reinvent themselves, who are sort of, like Tom Hardy and Robert Pattinson could be going for every big role in movies right now and probably have a punter's chance of getting it. But he was just like, I want to do interesting, weird character work.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fascinating to watch. And they do, for as weird as the choices they make, more often than not, they make the right one.
Well, they also have gotten them in very smart ways. They've gotten themselves into positions where they can then make lots of weird choices, where they can turn around and Tom Hardy can be like, I want to do Locke. I want to do a whole movie where I'd never leave the car.
Talking about the poor.
Yeah.
I really like that movie.
Yeah, I did too until a certain point. But I like
the point in the car?
And I was like, wait a minute. We're just driving in this car.
We're talking about concrete for like
Is this the
80
laziest
minutes,
movie
man.
of all time?
Yeah.
And that's what I like about both those guys, is they then, I think, from positions of power and access, are allowed to be like, ooh, now let me make really interesting, weird choices.
Yeah.
I have a question, though, for you.
Yeah.
Because you've finished your list.
Yeah.
What about Buono, though?
It's true.
Great call. Thank you.
What about Buono, though? I mean, we're talking like this year we got Buono in a tub.
I think that
Tubbed up Buono?
Buono was underutilized in
I
this season
agree.
of Stranger
I
Things.
agree.
You know, I think
It's
she had
painful.
like, there was that moment in the first season where Mike comes home and she hugs him, and it's like this really incredible, like it's probably one of the most touching moments of the series. They really just shunted her off to the side and then had that weird
all the
tub
parents
moment.
kind of went away.
Yeah.
You know.
Can I make a suggestion that will not be taken and probably shouldn't for financial or creative reasons? But I kind of wish they would just do a bottle episode about what those parents do all day.
Sure. I know.
Well, evil demons are fighting their children in the
smart
streets.
thing would be to just only do
Yes.
you mean just Mike's parents, right?
Yes.
Buono and the dad.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I thought you meant all the parents in town.
No, you were saying
but I
like-
think you're right. It's just those two parents.
Just
what
like
are the
their
parents
day, they're
doing
like-
who are like eating it? Like, have you heard about this kid who
it
got
should be
sucked
like-
into an
it
other
should-
dimension?
Do you want tuna for lunch today, honey? That sounds good.
It should be a
Hours pass.
Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf level argument that they're in the house, and the kids are just entering and exiting.
Because there's a way to look at the show, and I
Yep.
won't argue that this is the correct way to look at the show, but there's a way to look at the show that is just a brutal indictment of their parenting.
No,
I mean,
it's like they let their kids rock, man.
That's
They get on the
80s
bikes and
parenting.
go.
They're-
Yeah, 80s
that's 80s
parenting was
parenting.
way
They're
different.
free range
Their
kids.
daughter drove to another town
Yeah.
to sleep with a guy at a conspiracy
They
theorist
had no
flophouse.
idea.
They weren't even
my mom used
interested.
to get mad at me if I wouldn't leave the house by 10 a.m.
My
in the
mom's
80s.
mad at me right now, and I don't even know why.
Yeah.
She was like,
My
"You're
mom
wasting a
just called
beautiful
me.
day."
My
And I
mom
would just
just
be
called
like,
me
"It
and said,
sucks out.
"It's time for
Philly."
dinner."
It's right. Like, you're like, it's 3 hours earlier here. Do you have to FaceTime her to prove that you're eating?
that I'm with friends. It's okay. On my list should have been, because I thought of it only too late, Taika Waititi.
Oh, good call. Yeah.
I thought he did such a phenomenal job.
So mad you pronounced that correctly, by the way. You prepared for this podcast.
No,
in a
I
way
didn't.
never-
I thought he did. And listen, I'm a fan of Taika Waititi from the jump, from Eagle versus Shark, or all of the stuff he did before coming here. Hunt for the Wilder People, I think he's just tremendous. And then what he brought to what has for me been one of the least interesting Marvel character movie series, the Thor series, revolutionized a character that they have misunderstood and misused. And I thought Thor Ragnarok was one of my favorite movies of the year, one of the most fun movies
Chris.
of the year. And Taika not only delivered in terms of like a great, big, spectacle-filled, great story, classic kind of Marvel space story, Marvel, Thor story, and then also made it hilarious. And I'm going to say, not only did I love what he did as a director, but like the character he played, that character made of rock,
That guy was hilarious.
was hilarious and was just relentlessly funny. And so Taika would always
What was that guy's
would
name?
also
Doug?
be
Korg.
You talking
yeah.
about Doug, new Doug.
Oh, yeah.
I think that one bright spot of culture going from this year into next year is the sudden sense that maybe talented creators can grab the reins of these corporate entertainments that are going to be made regardless. If you think about Logan going into Thor, going into a movie that we're not talking about because we don't want to spoil in any way, but the culture will know what we're talking about by the time this posts.
Yep.
Hopefully Black Panther.
Yes. How good does that look?
It looks great. And
Coogler, baby.
It's separate. I mean, do we wish that all of these multinational corporations were funding these directors and these creators to do these things separate and apart from their IP advancement?
Yeah.
Sure. But if these are the sandboxes they're given, at least let them play.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's kind of exciting.
I missed your 40th birthday party.
That's okay.
A happy birthday.
Thank you.
I felt bad. I felt bad that I didn't make it, and I felt bad, so I wanted to get you something.
Oh my God.
Chris Ryan, I have watched Ozark.
Did you know this was coming too?
Isn't that great?
Did you guys know this was coming?
Take this now with a grain of salt because I have watched not even as much as Andy has.
Yeah.
But in the last 3 days...
Oh, you did this recently.
This
Right,
is
in the last
really-
3 days,
you
knowing
guys
I was
know
coming
me.
here,
Thank you.
I watched Ozark.
Thank you.
And by the way, it's great. It's great.
It's a lot of fun.
It wouldn't make the wall for me. It's not, but I'm really enjoying
Yes.
it.
How many
I will
episodes
finish
you-
this series. 3.
3.
I will finish this series. It's terrific.
Yeah.
And as much as you talked about it prior,
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. And I was like, you know what? That would be great.
That's the nicest thing that you could possibly have given me for my 40th
There you go.
birthday.
Happy
Thank
birthday,
you so
my
much.
friend.
All right, let's wrap it up. For Jason Mantzoukas and Andy Greenwald, I am Chris Ryan. Thank you for listening to another year of Watch Podcasts. We can't wait to talk to you in 2018.
Happy New Year, Baranskis.
Yeah.
Today's episode of The Watch was brought to you by Zelle. Cash is easy to lose and checks take a while to clear. Thankfully, there is Zelle, a new way to send money to your friends and family from your banking app. Once you've enrolled, the money moves right between almost any U.S. bank accounts and typically arrives in minutes. Plus, it's backed by major banks, which means you can send money confidently. Just go to zellepay.com to learn more. That's ZELLEPAY.com. Zelle. This is how money moves.